So yeah, it's nice to see all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Ariana. I work at the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. I'm our Administrative and Artist Relations Manager, so I manage the Thrive Grants program. And if you don't know about OVAC, we were founded in 1988, and our mission is to grow and develop Oklahoma's visual arts community through education, connection, promotion, and funding. So Thrive Grants is only one of the programs that we offer. We offer multiple different other programs throughout the year. We have a second smaller grant program for artists. We also offer a couple exhibitions throughout the year, and we also offer some professional development opportunities too, like workshops and panels about different topics to support artists. So that's a little bit about us. Thrive Grants is really exciting. We have $60,000 to offer for visual arts projects in Oklahoma. And in the presentation today, I'm going to go over where the money for these grants comes from, what kind of application materials you'll need to apply, who reviews the applications, and how they're evaluated, as well as kind of a timeline of what to expect when you're applying, and also what happens if you get a grant. And then at the end, I'll have a couple examples of past projects that we've funded in the past, and then time for questions at the end. Yeah, and for Thrive Grants, in our first 4 cycles, we started in 2021. We've funded 35 grantees, given out over $200,000. And the artist projects have reached over 800 more artists, and at this point, probably over 13,000 people. And we're just finishing up our 5th cycle, so we'll be able to update our number of grantees and awards given out and everything like that. And we have applications open now for our 6th cycle. So it's really exciting to see what everyone is working on. And yeah, get to meet our new cohort of artists too. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where the money for Thrive Grants comes from. We're really lucky to be able to partner with the Andy Warhol Foundation for the visual arts. The Andy Warhol Foundation was started in accordance with Andy Warhol's will to advance visual arts and also to preserve his legacy and artwork. And one of the programs that they offer at the Warhol Foundation is the Regional Regranting Program, which they started in 2007. So they partner with organizations in 39 different cities and regions in the US to give funding to these organizations that then redistribute the funding to their local communities, which is why it's called regranting, the regranting program. So we're one of the organizations at OVAC. They give us funding, and then we distribute that funding to artists in our community. And our mission at OVAC is to serve artists statewide. So these grants are open to any artists across the state of Oklahoma. And yeah, they're an amazing partner to work with. And we're really excited that we get to operate this program with them. So yeah, like I said, Thrive Grants, this is going to be our 6th cycle. We have $60,000 to give out. And artists can choose to apply for a $5,000 grant or a $10,000 grant. It's going to be the same application, regardless of which category you're applying for. You'll just check which one you are applying for. The $5,000 grants are better suited usually to maybe like an individual artist or a project that kind of has a smaller budget. And then the $10,000 grants, obviously just better suited to projects that have a larger budget and maybe a group of artists that are working together or something like that that need a little bit more support and funding. And the goal of Thrive is to provide support for artist-led visual arts projects that are ambitious, impactful, innovative, and are collaborative and engage the community. So that's the goal, and I feel like there's a lot of information kind of just in that one sentence that I wanted to break down a little bit, and I'll kind of continue to break it down as we go through the presentation. But first of all, obviously, we're the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition, working with the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. So we want the projects to be visual arts based. Um, they can be multimedia projects that incorporate different art forms like sound or music, or performance and things like that. But we really want them to have visual arts at the core. A project that's really rooted in like theater, or music or something might not be the best fit for Thrive grants. Um, but we're definitely open to multimedia projects that incorporate some other elements besides just visual art. Um, and then we also want the projects to be artist-led. We give funding to visual artists, individual artists, and small groups of artists, but we don't fund like nonprofits or businesses or anything like that. Our goal is really to give funding directly to individuals. And so we want the projects to be led by artists and conceptualized by artists, not just a project that, is a program from an organization that you're just kind of helping out with. We really want it to be your vision and your project that we're supporting as the artist. Also, we want to fund ambitious, impactful, innovative projects. So a lot of art projects are exhibitions, but we can really fund all different kinds of projects. So I'll get a little bit into that more as we go along. It looks like Solist has a raised hand if you want to ask a question.
Yeah, I just had a question about the nonprofit status. Can a nonprofit be part of the grant and like the artist mainly be the one who is applying? But if like it's a collaboration with the artist and a nonprofit, could that work?
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like usually the way that we see that kind of working out is projects will obviously need a place to physically happen a lot of the time. So I feel like artists partner sometimes with like businesses, venues, nonprofits, and that can also happen in different capacities, not just like as a venue. But so yeah, definitely since these are collaborative in nature, you can work with businesses and organizations and nonprofits and things like that. Um, but the funding will just be going directly to an artist and not like we won't be sending a check to a nonprofit.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, we also, like I was talking about, want the projects to be collaborative and engage the community. And those two things I think kind of go hand in hand. So you can collaborate with organizations, nonprofits, specific communities, community members, other artists. And that can just happen in different ways depending on what your project is. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit broad overview of what the grants are, and we'll get more into these topics as we go on. Um, and yeah, like I said, what kind of projects do we fund? A lot of the times, visual arts projects are displayed in an exhibition setting, but we fund all different kinds of projects. It doesn't have to just be an exhibition. These are examples of things that we funded in the past, but it's not an all-encompassing list. They're just kind of some ideas. So we've funded visual arts publications, publication-based things like zine projects or book projects. Maybe it's an artist doing research or compiling things that culminates in a book or publication that they're sharing with people. Or sometimes it's multiple artists working on a project and creating work that is shown in a book or publication format of some kind. We do fund collaborative like art shows and exhibitions and things like that. We also have funded educational arts programming. It could be like workshops and things like that. Community art making, where community members come together to make art together that culminates in some kind of project or artwork. also experiential installation-based type things, and multimedia projects. So it can really be all different kinds of things, how your project is shown and comes together. But those are just some ideas, and like I said, not an exhaustive list. Um, and these are some more, a little bit going in depth about requirements of what we're specifically looking for. So like I said, uh, things that are really great and things that we are looking for in applications. Having a central focus in the visual arts is definitely a necessity. Being accessible to the public in some way. And like I said, that can be different, depending on what your project is. A lot of projects are accessible physically, to the public for like an opening, a screening, an exhibition, something like that. But sometimes projects are also, digitally or virtually, remotely accessible, sometimes through like a website component, or an audio component, a website. So those can be virtual components to public accessibility as well. Um, and like I said, projects that are pushing the boundaries of the traditional exhibition experience. And I feel like that also ties in with the collaboration and community impact. If you have a specific community of people that you're trying to reach, just think about what they would be most interested in seeing, how they would best be able to access your project. Um, and that can kind of inform, the form of your project and, what it will be and how the community will engage. Um, and also when we say community engagement, um, it can be specific or a little bit more broad. Um, and usually I think the best applicants are trying to like serve a community that they're a part of. So like for example, we've had some, projects that serve like rural areas in Oklahoma, and maybe it's like an artist that is from a smaller town and they're putting on some kind of
Mm.
community art project that serves their small town. So it makes sense if you're from a small town, hopefully you're kind of embedded in the community and you know what they need and you know what they're interested in, and you can create a project, that's really engaging for them, and easy for them to access. Um, and then these two last ones are just a little bit more technical. Like I said, you can be kind of an individual working on this project or, maybe part of a small group of artists. If you are working with a group of artists and collaborators, we'll ask you to select a lead applicant. And the lead applicant will be the one that submits the application. They'll be the one to sign an agreement with us, if you get selected for a grant, and they'll be the person to receive the funding and the checks directly, and be, the main point of contact for your project. So, I'm usually like the main point of contact for, artists communicating to OVAC. And if you're working with a group, just select one person to be your main point of contact. Um, Also, we're looking to fund events that are taking place in Oklahoma, artists living in Oklahoma. Again, we're the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition, so that's our mission. And the regional regranting program through the Warhol Foundation has regranting programs all throughout the country. So, if you're an artist or know artists working in different states, in different cities throughout the US, I would definitely encourage you to look at the Warhol Foundation's website because there might be a regranting program, that could better serve you. And then on the right side, we'll have things that are not best suited to this grant. So again, our mission is to serve adult, individual, independent artists. So, uh, we want our grantees to at least be 21 adults. Um, we don't fund, um, artists that are currently in like an MFA, BFA art school or will be in art school in a degree program in the year where this grant is taking place. Because again, we want to give funding to individual artists and not necessarily for like school projects. But we will be here, if you are in school after you finish your degree, and we'd love to work with you. And again, like I said, we don't give funding directly to nonprofits or for-profit entities. Some artists do have an LLC, which is totally fine. But we will be giving money to individuals directly, not to an LLC or a B Corp or S Corp or 501(c)(3) or anything like that. Also, if you have received a grant from us in the past, a Thrive grant specifically, we ask that you take at least 1 year break before reapplying, but you definitely can reapply again. And then, yeah, if your lead applicant or most of the artists working on your project live outside of Oklahoma, that's not going to be eligible. And if you're unable to finish your project in the grant period. So the grant period is about a year, and I'll go a little bit more in depth about that too. But if you have a really expansive, huge multi-year project that you want to work on, it might be a good idea to kind of think about the timeline of this specific grant and if there's kind of a good chunk that could be wrapped up or would work well on its own that you could finish in about a year or so. So those are some more of the technicalities of what we're looking for. And then I'll go over actually submitting your application and the kind of materials that you'll need. So we use Submittable to collect pretty much all of our applications at OVAC, including the Thrive Grant application. And Submittable is a third-party website that's designed for collecting applications. So it's pretty great to use. If you don't have an account with them already, you'll need to set up an account. But it's pretty nice because you'll set up your account and then all the applications that you submit will be saved to your profile. And like it shows on this image, you can also save drafts of your application as you're working and then log in and out and, come back to them and keep working on them before you finally submit. And next up, I also just wanted to say that there are certain word limits to these questions. So I would definitely encourage you to log into Submittable as soon as you can and just make sure you see all of the exact questions, word limits, and how everything will need to be submitted as you start working on your application. And yeah, you can type directly into the forms or you can kind of work in a Word document and then just copy and paste whenever you need to. And if for some reason submitting an application through Submittable isn't going to work for you or isn't accessible for some reason, feel free to reach out to me and we can work together on the best way for you to submit an application. And I have my contact information at the end, and I'll also be sending out a follow-up email with like the link to this recording, give you my contact information, everything like that. So feel free to reach out if you're having questions while you're submitting your application. Yeah, and then next up, these are some of the things we'll ask for in the application. Like I said, definitely log into Submittable so you can see all the word counts and the specific exact questions. But just generally, we'll ask for the title of your project and a short summary of what you envision your project being. You'll select if you want to apply for the $5,000 or $10,000 category. And then we'll also ask for a list of collaborators. So usually it's just a short bio of who the people you're working with are and how they're going to contribute to your project. And then we'll also ask about audience and community engagement. So who are the people that you're wanting to engage with your project, and how are you going to do that? As well as desired outcomes and the importance of funding. So at the end of your project, what are you hoping to accomplish? What are you hoping people take away from your project? And why is it really critical and important for you to receive this funding right now? Um, and then we have some more components, public presentation. This will ask kind of about like how your project will be publicly accessible, and what avenue you're going to be displaying it. So are you going to be working with a venue to host an exhibition or program or something, or displaying it online, virtually, remotely, some way? And how people will be accessing your project. We'll also ask for a timeline, so that'll be a list of, milestones and goals that you have so that you'll be able to achieve the project. Um, and we'll also ask for a budget. There are so many things that go into the budget. We always recommend artists to compensate themselves. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. And that might be around maybe 20 to 30% of your budget. Because I'll go into the timeline of the grant period a little bit more. But like I said, it's about a year that you'll have to work on the project. So you definitely want to compensate yourself as you're managing this project over the course of like a year. And if you have collaborators that are working with you on your project in different ways, you definitely want to compensate them as well. Um, Also, of course, materials and supplies. Sometimes, like I said, people need to host a website or something, or make promotional materials, marketing, things like that. Um, if you need to travel, maybe like around Oklahoma for your project or something like that, you can put travel compensation in your budget. So yeah, lots of things to think about, but we'll definitely ask for a budget. And we'll also ask for a resume from the lead applicant. Um, and this will specifically be an artist resume that's focused on your art career and your artistic accomplishments. So if you have maybe like a day job in a different industry that isn't related to your art practice or this project, then you don't necessarily have to include those things in your resume. We usually like it to be focused on your artistic accomplishments, and like any resume, I guess, that you'd be submitting geared towards what you're applying for. And then we'll also ask for an artist statement, which is, about the kind of work that you make, and how this project relates to your art and what you do. And lastly, relevant images and supplemental materials. So I feel like this is kind of a combination of showing some images of past work that you have done, the kind of style and work that you make, as well as you can also include some concept sketches of what you want your Thrive project to be, to give people reading your application an idea of what you want to create. So, yeah, and a lot of projects are based in like community engagement. Sometimes that happens through, like I was saying, like workshops or teaching or community programming in some way. And a lot of artists do teach sometimes, or organize public programming. So sometimes people also include maybe like images of workshops that you've taught or programs that you've done in the past, as part of your portfolio. So um, yeah, the relevant images usually past work, past projects you've worked on, as well as maybe a couple concept sketches, concept of art of what you want your project to be. So yeah, those are the application materials. And then next, I have a couple writing tips and application questions that I usually get. Um, so for the writing tips, the first, it seems obvious, but is always just a good thing to keep in mind, which is just to answer every question thoroughly and completely. So for example, in the application about public presentation, we ask artists to list secured or potential venues for their project, indicating those that are confirmed and how the community will interact with the project. Because sometimes people in their application will just write a list of venues without indicating if this is a confirmed venue or any kind of additional information. And so you just want whoever's reading your application to get a really full picture of all the work that you've done on your project already. Um, so if you don't, for example, like have a venue confirmed, but you've been talking with a specific venue about hosting a program there, you can put that in your application, like Oklahoma Contemporary, the venue is confirmed, or Oklahoma Contemporary, venue is not yet confirmed, but in communication with this person about hosting a potential program there, or something like that. Um, and then the last part of this question is how the community will interact with the project. Because sometimes people's projects will have, they'll be multifaceted and have different components. Um, so say you're having an exhibition and also a workshop, but they're going to take place at different locations or different venues or something. You'd want to list both of the venues and if they're confirmed or not. And the exhibition is taking place at this location and the workshop is taking place at this location. So this seems like a pretty straightforward question, but just make sure that you're answering everything thoroughly. Um, Next, assume the people reading your application don't know who you are or what your project is. Um, so this is just kind of a theoretical thing to get into the mindset while you're writing your application to uh, try to communicate as clear and concise about your project as possible. To envision someone that doesn't know you, doesn't know your project. What are all of the things that you need to communicate to them to give them a really clear vision of what your project is going to be? And I'll also go into a little bit more detail about who reviews the applications and how they're evaluated and everything. But you definitely will be having people read your application that don't know who you are. So it's kind of a theoretical mindset, but also kind of a reality too. And then last, just make sure to read all the guidelines thoroughly before you apply. And probably before you start working on your application, just so um, if you're reading through the eligibility and you definitely don't meet one of them, like maybe you're finishing college, but you're still enrolled in college right now. You don't want to start working through your whole application and then realize at the last second that you're not eligible right now. So I would definitely recommend go to the Thrive webpage on our website, which I'll have at the end of the presentation, and just read through everything on that page and go to the submittable application and read through everything in the application too, just so you have all of the information at your disposal before you get started. And then next, some application FAQs. How many applications can I submit? We ask artists just to submit one application at a time as the lead applicant. Um, so just one at a time. How important is community engagement? It is definitely really important. It's one of the main things that we're looking for when we're evaluating the grants and selecting the grantees. Um, so, if you have like a solo show that you want to do, but it's not really collaborative, you're not really trying to reach like a specific community or audience, maybe that's not the best fit for this grant. If you're having a really hard time answering those community engagement questions. Um, and I'll mention a little bit more, but we do have a smaller grant program that we do throughout the year. So that's also an option if Thrive isn't the best fit for you. Um, and we already talked a little bit about this, but nonprofits cannot receive a Thrive grant. You can definitely collaborate with them in different capacities, but the funding will go to individuals. And then I also get the question a lot if an artist should apply for a $5,000 or $10,000 grant, which category would work best for them. There's really not a one size like fits all. I can't give you like yes or no, absolutely, this is the right decision one way or another. But some things that I tell people to take into consideration are definitely compensating yourself and compensating your fellow artists. Um, because if you're trying to compensate, especially a lot of collaborators, and you're already almost maxed out at the $5,000 level, and you're like, how am I gonna afford materials and things like that? Maybe that's a sign that you should apply for the $10,000 category. Um, and similarly, I suggest to people before you apply, definitely get like really clear about what you want your project to be and what your vision is. And once you're clear about that, go through and think of just every single possible thing that you could possibly need to spend money on and purchase while you're trying to make your vision become a reality. Just list everything that you can possibly think of and then try to get quotes and estimates of how much everything will cost. And if you're really easily hitting the $5,000 and going over that, that might be a sign to consider applying for the 10,000. Um, and usually we don't have people read through the applications and say like, um, oh, I don't think this project really deserves $10,000. I think this doesn't make any sense and they should have applied for the 5,000. If your application is like well thought out and well researched, you're probably not going to have people thinking that. And if you feel unsure and you're like, I don't want to ask for too much, I'll just apply for the 5,000. I definitely don't want artists to underpay themselves and not give themselves enough support and enough funding allocated in their budget if they really do need the $10,000. So there's no specific right or wrong answer, but those are just some things to keep in mind when you're trying to decide. Um, and then, yeah, next up, we'll go into a little bit more about how the applications are evaluated and who reads through them. So this is our scoring matrix. We also have this up on our website, so you can download a copy or screenshot it or reference it while you're working on your application. And we have four main criteria that we're looking for, or that we're uh, kind of thinking about while we're reviewing applications, which is career altering potential, how this project fits into your artistic practice and career, and how it will affect your career going forward. Artistic merit of the project, which is just kind of like about, the concept of the project. Um, Also, community impact, like I said, that's really important, and that's on the scoring matrix. And then the ability to complete the project. And ability to complete the project really just about like how feasible it is for you and how well researched it is. So, if you have a really detailed timeline, a budget that seems realistic, and you have some good artwork samples and like resume to show your track record of doing things, um, all of those things would help to give you, a higher score in this category. And then we also have three priority consideration areas where applications can get extra points because these are just things that we really want to support. We really want to support projects that serve underrepresented regions of Oklahoma. So usually regions outside of Oklahoma City and Tulsa that might have, a little bit less access to arts programming. Um, we also want to support projects that are led by Native people and people of color, and collaborate with BIPOC artists. And then also we just want to support projects that have really great collaboration with the community, with other artists, businesses and organizations and things like that. Um, so most of the points will come from these four main criteria, but projects can also get a little bit of extra points for hitting some of these other categories on the right side. Um, and then also just wanted to talk about who reviews the applications. So me and like our staff at OVAC, do not make the selections. We have a selection committee that we organize to make the decisions. It's the same for our other smaller grant program as well. And every year our committee changes, so we get different people working on the committee, different perspectives and things like that. But every year for Thrive, we have the same kinds of people that we're looking for. One person will always be a past Thrive grantee, so someone who's gotten the Thrive grant before. So they'll be an artist that knows how to do community-based projects and knows what goes on over the course of the Thrive grant cycle and has gone through it before. We'll also always have other local artists and arts administrators from Oklahoma. We like to have people from different cities and communities too. So yeah, local artists, arts administrators, sometimes professors, curators, people that work in arts and culture in different ways. And then we also will always have at least one person that works at another organization out of state in the Warhol regranting family. So someone kind of like me who works at a nonprofit in a different state that helps operate regranting programs like this wherever they're living. And so that's also great because they also are familiar with community engaged art like this, and what it takes to create projects like this. And it's cool having someone from out of state kind of have like a fresh perspective on the applicants that we have. So those are the kinds of people that'll be reviewing the applications, but they kind of change every year. And we always give them the scoring matrix so we can have some objective criteria that we're reviewing all of the applications against, and that gives us a good basis of, um, you know, applications that are like scoring high across every single person that's reviewing them. Um, that would be like a good sign that they're a strong applicant. So yeah, that's scoring criteria. And then next, a timeline of the grant, like application process and grant process too. So applications are open right now. They will close on June 1st. So make sure to get your applications in before then. And then I believe it's in about 2 weeks, May 5th, 6th, and 7th. I'll be having office hour appointments where people can just sign up to get individual one-on-one time to talk about their projects and applications. Um, and we're based in Oklahoma City, but I can do like phone call, Zoom call. If you want to meet in person, we can meet in person in Oklahoma City. And usually the appointments are like 30 minutes or an hour, and I can just answer questions. I can review your application, read through and give you feedback. Just whatever is helpful to help you along in your application process. Um, and I'll also send a link to this in my follow-up email. So if you guys want to sign up, you can. It's also on our website if you want to sign up. Um, and then everyone that applies will be notified if they were selected or not by the end of July. So you can see it kind of does take a while, but um, like I said, I don't make the decisions, but I will send all of the applications to our committee. They'll review them over the course of a few weeks, use our scoring matrix, score everything, read everything, leave their notes and everything like that. And then we'll all get together and have a meeting to decide on the final selections. And while I don't make the decisions, I do read through all the applications that we get and I do attend all the meetings. So if you don't get selected for some reason, I can also give you some feedback afterwards, after the notifications have been sent out. And it does just help me to be able to give feedback even before you apply, because I've been managing the Thrive Grants since 2022. So I've gone through many cycles and seeing kind of the common questions that the committee asks. And things that they're looking for, things like that. Um, So yeah, everyone will be notified by July 31st. And then the grant period will be August 2026 to June 2027, the beginning of August to the end of June. So it's just about a little less than a year. And the project will just need to be completed sometime within that time frame. Sometimes artists have already kind of started working on a project a little bit. And then, maybe it only takes them 6 months to finish it. A lot of artists, it will take them, the full pretty much 10, 11 months to finish. And yeah, that's really fine. It just needs to happen sometime within that time frame. And then the funds for the Thrive grants are distributed in 3 installments. So we'll give you the majority of the funding right at the beginning. We'll notify you, the lead applicant, send you an agreement and some paperwork and stuff to fill out. And then we'll give you the majority of your funding at the beginning so that you can get started buying all your stuff and get started on your project. Then we usually distribute a second installment about halfway through, and then the last installment at the end. And then also over the course of that, if you're awarded a grant, we'll just have some like periodic check-ins, usually with me, just so I can help answer questions, make sure everything is like going well. And over the last few years, we've also had a Thrive mentor. Um, uh, who is like a past grantee as well, and someone that's really familiar with um, doing community-based arts programming and things like that. And they're just a great resource that we try to provide to the grantees so they have someone else that they can bounce ideas off of, ask questions, get feedback and stuff. That's not just like me or people that work at OVAC. So yeah, that's kind of what to expect through the application and grant process. And then I just have 2 examples of past grantees that I'll share real quick. And then I think there's been some questions in the chat, so I'll read those questions and have time for more questions too. Um, so Evan and Joachim were a duo that were selected as grantees just in this last cycle. They're just finishing up their program right now, and their project was called Brewing Dialogue. So their project is kind of based around uh, Ethiopian coffee rituals and ceremonies, and yeah, their project was really cool because it does have a more formal visual arts component. You can see in one of these images, um, they had visual art pieces created using like coffee plants and coffee materials and things. They also worked on a documentary where they actually went to Ethiopia, where Yakim's from, to document the process of growing and processing coffee. And so they had video component, visual art component, and then they also had a kind of immersive experiential component where they would host coffee ceremonies for people to come together and experience this and like learn about maybe like a different culture than they're from and have a common experience together. And I just got to go to one in Tulsa not that long ago, and it was really fun. So yeah, this is a project that kind of takes a different form than usually like a traditional exhibition. They do kind of have a little bit of the formal visual arts, but they also have community engagement that's really baked into the project, where people are coming together to talk and like experience and learn things together. So I thought they were a great example of a project that we funded. And then next we have Kira Hain. And Kira's project is really different, takes a different form. Their project was the Caddo Child Educational Workbooks. So their project was a series of quarterly workbooks that Kira researched, designed, and illustrated. So this is an example of kind of a more publication-based project. And Kira is part of the Caddo Nation, and the community that she's really trying to serve is the Caddo community in Oklahoma, specifically children. So the workbooks cover Caddo history and language. Like these, I think, are showing native plants. And so the workbooks are a way for children to engage and learn about their culture. So yeah, this was a really cool project. And like I said, also takes a different form than like Evan and Yakum's. Isn't a traditional exhibition, but is still tied to visual art through like the illustration and creation of these physical workbooks. So yeah, that is most of the presentation. This is my email address. I will email you so you'll have it, but if you want to write it down, if you want to contact me, also our website with the Thrive page, OVAC-OK/Thrive grants. And if anyone does want to have an in-person office hour appointments, we're based in Oklahoma City. This is our address. Um, Definitely sign up for an appointment, though we work a hybrid schedule. So if you show up unannounced, I might not be there, probably won't be there. So definitely sign up. But yeah, so that's my information. And just lastly, before we do questions, if you went through this presentation and you're like, I don't know if Thrive is right for me, we also have our Grants for Artists grant program, which we've been doing for several years. It's a smaller grant program. We offer $16,000 per year, and artists can apply in these four different categories. So professional basics, like just buying supplies and basic things you need for your art practice, education assistance for attending like workshops, seminars, conferences, continuing education type things. Also creative projects, which are usually kind of like exhibitions and things, and community engaged work as well. And these are a great resource. They're smaller amounts, but very approachable applications. A lot of the times people are applying to these, it's like their first time applying to a grant. And sometimes people kind of get some practice applying to grants with these and then go on to apply for one of our Thrive grants. We've definitely seen that in the past. So just some examples, but I'm going to open up the chat and read these questions real quick. And yeah, we can get into our questions. Someone asks, what does an artist resume look like with no prior art experience? That is a really good question. I would try to think of, because sometimes people can put like education, and it also doesn't have to be formal education, like college or anything. If you've taken like a workshop or had like some kind of mentorship from an artist, we can put that. Um, but also if you've never been in like exhibitions before or don't have any kind of like education to put, you could try to like go through your kind of more professional day job. Um, uh, work that you've done in the past and see what kind of skills could be related to your project. Um, and sometimes artists also work in kind of like tangentially related fields, like design or something is a big one, like graphic design or something, where it's like it might not be 100% related to the project you're doing, but you can show some of your skills that are transferable. But yeah, if people have specific questions about like writing artist statements or like a resume or something, feel free to send me an email because I have a couple resources that I send out to artists a lot to kind of give you an idea of what a resume could look like. Um, and then another question, is being a person under the age of 21 a requirement for applying for a Thrive grant? No. So you have to be at least 21 or over to apply. So, and that's primarily as like a lead applicant, because we just want to make sure the people that are getting the grants are adults, they'll sign the contracts and receive the checks and everything like that. And if you have people under the age of 21 like collaborating on your project, that's totally fine. But the person that'll be signing the agreements and getting the check payments and everything like that, we want to make sure they're at least 21. So yeah, to be a lead applicant, at least 21 or older. Um, and then some more questions. Okay. What if, as the project goes on, some supplies or materials get donated? How flexible is the budget once submitted? Yeah, the budget is definitely flexible. And the timeline is because we understand that you might have like bumps in the road or things that come up unexpectedly. Um, Especially right now, like the prices of your materials could fluctuate and you might end up maybe you get some materials donated and you save a little bit in one category, but then the price of some of your materials goes up and you have to spend more in a different category. That's totally fine. If you have to make a huge change, that's like, I don't want to give any specific number, but I mean, if it's like $1,000 worth of change in your budget, you can definitely ask. But yeah, I would always say if you get selected and you do need to make changes to your timeline or budget or anything, feel free to send me an email as you're going through and we can talk about it. But if it's just a small change, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And we would love for, you to get some of your supplies donated if possible. Um, and then someone asks, can you be awarded a Thrive grant for one project and a creative projects grant for a different project in the same year? So one for our Thrive grant and then another in our smaller grant category. Um, Usually we haven't really had it happen. There's nothing like specifically prohibiting it. Um, I think it might be wise to, especially with like a Thrive grant, maybe kind of like focus on uh Thrive specifically, because they tend to be kind of like labor intensive projects. But there's nothing super like restrictive about that. It would be good if they were just like separate projects. So you're not just getting I guess like multiple of our grants to fund one project. But yeah, but if you have more questions about that, feel free to email me, and we can talk about it more in depth too. Um, Someone asked, are the smaller grant opportunities, what is the budget? So yeah, we give out $16,000 a year total. And the categories you can apply for are up to $500 or up to $1,500, depending what category you're applying for. So definitely smaller grant opportunities. Um, and another question, if your proposal is for a cross-disciplinary project, how much of that project needs to be visual, especially if it is a performance artwork with dance, projections, and handmade paper? Um, yeah, hard question. There's not like a specific percentage because I feel like it's kind of hard to measure, like, oh, it needs to be at least 55% or something. But I think uh, sometimes the format of how your project will be displayed can be a good um, way to think about it too. Because like if it's like an exhibition with performance elements and music elements or something. Um, okay, I'm trying to make sure I'm saying this. Yeah, if it's an exhibition with performance or music elements, I think that would probably fit in the visual arts category, because it is an exhibition, which is a vehicle for displaying visual art. Um, but if your project is like mostly a concert that is like predominantly performance and music and just a little bit of visual art, um, then that might be something that's like, oh, that's mostly based in performance and music and not the best fit for visual arts and for Thrive. Um, But yeah, also feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk more about your specific project. Um, and sorry, my computer's running a little bit slow, but trying to read this last question. Okay, so someone is doing a large scale mural that they already have approval for, but the total budget will exceed, um, even the $10,000 grant that we offer. Um, would we qualify? Uh, so yeah, if your grant, if your project is very, very large and way over the amount that we would be able to offer. Like sometimes it might not be the best fit, like if it's $100,000 and we're only able to contribute like 10%. That might not be the best fit. Because I believe we've also at OVAC talked with the Andy Warhol Foundation about this, and we will really want the projects to, be led by the artist and for you to really be able to execute your vision. And I think sometimes when the budget is, say, $100,000, for example, and you're going to have to get funding from all of these different organizations, then it can be really hard to kind of balance your creative vision with the needs and expectations of all the different grants that you're getting. Um, so that can be really hard. And also sometimes um, we've also discussed this on our selection committees. If, yeah, your budget is extremely large, like $100,000 or more, it can feel like the money that we're contributing isn't as impactful to a project that, their whole budget might only be $10,000 or $15,000 where the money that we're giving is really making an impact and is just going to go straight to their creative vision. Yeah, but I totally understand it is hard to get funding for projects that are really large scale. But they also said they'll be scheduling a call, so I'm excited to talk with you more about it. Um, and yeah, any other questions that anyone wants to ask? Okay. Well, we are right at 1 o'clock, so I think I might go ahead and end the meeting. But it was really nice to get to talk with you all. A lot of really good questions. And yeah, like I said, I'll follow up with an email with a link to the recording, um, and a link to book office hour appointments. So yeah, looking forward to talking with all of you more soon. And feel free to reach out to me, especially via email, if you have more questions. Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you, Ariana.